Okay, hello again, everybody. Lar from Complete Test Success here, and we're doing another Q&A today. So basically how this works is you ask me any questions you have about the IELTS test, and I will give you your answers, or potentially you're having a problem with the IELTS test. So maybe it's not that you have a specific question, but maybe you're having some type of a problem with the IELTS test. So you would like to describe the problem you're having to me, and then I would be able to give you suggestions and explain, perhaps the root, the source of that problem, and then how to overcome that. So that's essentially what we're doing. You tell me what questions you have, what problems you're having, and then I will give you the support that you need. Usually takes a little bit of time for the questions to start flowing in. So while we're waiting, let me just share some stuff with you here. So here I have my live feedback lessons. So those are weekly lessons that I have on Zoom for my subscribers. So they're free lessons every week on Zoom, and I'll share the link with you now, but click on that, subscribe. They're called live feedback lessons, and you'll have extra support from me on Zoom. And obviously, we're more face-to-face. We can discuss whatever issues you're having. And those lessons are based on all parts of the IELTS test. So that is the first thing. Then I have one-on-one feedback. So those are a combination of essay corrections and practice IELTS speaking tests. So you'll also find those with that link. I also have courses available there. So we'll just share that with you there. So that link for those things I was just discussing, you'll find them in the comments there. So either be it on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you are, you should find those in the link. Hey, Prince. Good to see you here, sir. Hello, Chiamba. Good morning. Fabashira. Okay, so here's our first question. I want to speak you're spelling that incorrectly. So you're just saying you want to speak fluently. So it's just about, you need to practice speaking in English more often. Like the reason why people aren't fluent in English is because they very rarely speak in English. The more you speak in English, the easier it gets, the faster it comes. What really slows you down as well is if you're at the level where you need to translate everything from English. So if I ask you a question, you need to translate it from English into your first language. Then after you do that, you need to think of your answer. Then you need to translate your answer from your first language back into English, and then you need to say it. So you need to get yourself to the point where you can think in English, that you don't need to depend on your first language. And again, that just comes from, getting more practice speaking in English. It'll get easier, but also getting more immersed in the English language. So, if you speak English for 10 minutes a day, it's probably not going to improve. If you speak English for an hour a day, that will absolutely help. If you speak English for an hour a day and then you only watch English when you're watching TV, when you're watching movies, if you only listen to English when you're listening to the news or the radio or podcasts or whatever it is, when you're reading, if you only read in English. So the more exposure you have to English, the faster you will be able to think in English. And then obviously that will help with your fluency as well. So it's a combination of those things. Hello, Taifa. Nice teacher. Thank you. Talish. Hello to you. Welcome to the lesson. Okay, so there are a bunch of people here, but again, this is based on your problems and your questions. So to any of you here, Talish, Taifa, Fabashira, Jamba, Prince, any questions, any concerns, any problems you're having, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to explain what your problem is, point you in the right direction. what you might find, and especially if you've been involved in my lessons and getting support from me already, what you'll know is that my approach is very practical in that look at what the problem is and fix that problem. So my advice is always very practical. I don't think all students really like that. A lot of students, they're looking for quick tips. So what I'm saying, like, you want to improve your fluency. So I've just explained to Fabishira, you want to improve your fluency. Here's a lot of work that you need to do to improve your fluency. And I think most students are looking for like quick, easy solutions. And I mean, they don't work. They sound good. Students want to hear them. Students are happy when they're given an easy and quick solution. But unless it gets you where you're going, what's the point? So what you'll find is a lot of the solutions are a lot of work. In fact, most of the solutions are a lot of work. So just keep that in mind. Jan, finally got to my live stream. Good to see you here. Sova, which tense should we use while writing essays? So Sova, that question shows me that you don't understand how to use tenses, because there's no correct tense for an essay. There's a correct tense for what you're describing. So if you're talking about something you did yesterday, it's past tense. If you're talking about something you do every day, it's present simple. If you're talking about something you're doing right now, it's, present continuous. Like and every tense is related to when the thing happened. So it's about where in time is the thing you're discussing located. So where would you put it if you had a timeline of now, past, future? Where on the timeline does the thing you're discussing belong? And that indicates what grammar tense you should use. So there is no correct tense to use while writing the essay. It's what are you discussing? What are you talking about? And when did that happen? Or is that still happening? Or is that going to happen in the future? Is this something from your imagination? So where does it belong in time indicates the tense. Now, that's a crash course on tenses. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to learn than just that. You need to learn how to construct the tenses, how to conjugate the verbs, like all the different versions of the verbs. But what you're discussing is when each tense is appropriate. And it seems like you probably know, you've learned a lot of different, like verb 1, verb 2, verb 3, the present, past participles, all that stuff. But if you don't know when it's appropriate, you're not going to use it correctly. So you do need to go back and you do need to do some research on what aspect of time does each tense represent. Tiplia, good morning to you. Can I talk with you right now? Yes, Taifa, you can ask whatever questions you have. Absolutely. Zaib, hello from Pakistan. Great. Good to see you, Zaib. Your explanation is very understandable. Good. That's what I'm aiming for. Thanks, Shah. Junica, hello to you. Your way is best. Everyone can understand easily. Thank you, Zaib. Thanks very much. But as I said, it is hard work. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of students get their IELTS scores, but it's a combination of me showing them what to do and them doing it. So I can explain what to do, but like they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. It's like I can show students what to do, but if they don't do it, the outcome is not what they want. So it is hard work. And the students on my course, I make that clear before anyone joins my courses. This is not going to be easy. This is going to be difficult. It's going to be a lot of work. But if you can do the work, I can help you get your scores. So, I'm always very honest with my students about that. Umi-chan, do you suggest a book called IELTS Journey 7 Plus for IELTS Task 1? Never heard of it. IELTS Journey 7 Plus. It's not published by Cambridge. I'm going to say no. IELTS Journey 7 Plus. I'm looking online. I can't find it. I've never heard of that book. I've never seen it. But really, the only books that I recommend my students to buy are the Cambridge IELTS books because they have practice reading and practice listening tests. And you need those practice reading and listening tests so that you'll understand how the reading and listening tests work, the format, the question types, the level of difficulty, if you can complete it in 1 hour, or the reading in 1 hour, or if you need additional time to get the score that you need. So it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get a good score in reading and listening if you're not preparing with the appropriate materials. This book you're referring to, I've never heard of before, so I cannot comment. But in general, I will stick with the books published by Cambridge. I've seen other big publishing houses publish books about IELTS. I don't remember which publishing houses right now. It doesn't matter. It wasn't Cambridge. So very, very well-known publishing houses publishing books about IELTS with questions that don't really look like they do look in the IELTS, like different formats of questions, and just not enough accuracy that I would recommend them. So anything I've seen that I would recommend, it's always published by Cambridge. I felt to understand phrased. Sorry, Fabashir, I'm not sure what you mean. If you can rephrase that question, I'm happy to help you. But right now, I don't understand what that is, what you're trying to ask. In writing, can we write the price of products need to be increased? I'd need more context. What's the question about? What are you writing about? What is the context? So, I mean, if you give me that, the price of products need to be increased, that makes sense. And it's grammatically correct, but it depends on the context of what you're writing about. So were you talking about something that happened in the past? So like Coca-Cola needed to increase their prices from $1 to $1.50. So in that case, need isn't correct. It would have to be needed, because it's something that happened in the past. So I can't say, without context, I cannot answer that question confidently. But as a standalone sentence, it is grammatically correct. Yeah. Loyalus from Bangladesh. Great. Good to see you here. Chris Cornell. Hello, sir. May I ask you a question? Absolutely. This is a Q&A. That's exactly what we're here for. Okay. Sova, instead of writing increases the tax of junk food. Sova, it's very, very difficult to say this without the context. It sounds like you're talking about task one. I'd need to see the task one question. So no, it's impossible for me to answer that. So you're saying, can we write the price of products need to be increased instead of increases the tax? It's very difficult to say, and I cannot say for sure, so I'm not going to give you the wrong advice. What are the best tips for writing essay task 2? So what are the best tips for writing task 2? The best tip is the tip that students tend to ignore because they don't believe me. The best tip for task 2 is to plan your essay before you write it. Most students don't do that because they don't see the value in doing that. Normally, this is how I normally convince a student to write an essay plan. I'll say, write an essay plan. They say, okay. Then they don't write an essay plan, and I check their writing, and I can see very clearly that they didn't write their essay plan because there are too many ideas, or their ideas are vague, their ideas are irrelevant, or they thought they were developing the idea, but they were actually discussing the outcome instead of explaining the idea. And I can see, like when I'm given feedback, I mean, this just yesterday, I was looking at a student's work. I was saying, like, I know by looking at your essay that you did not write a plan first, because here is a mistake that you would not have if you had planned your essay first. Here is a mistake that you would not have if you planned your essay first. And it's always very difficult to convince students to write an essay plan because they think they can do just as good without one. In fact, they think they'll have more time to write a better answer if they don't waste time on an essay plan. But the problem is, it's really difficult to think about all the ideas you need, think about the structure you need, think about the best vocab to use, think about the grammar to use, check if your ideas are relevant, check if your ideas are specific, think about how to develop each of those. If it's just, there's too much to do. But if you write a plan, basically what you're doing is you're taking the task achievement part of your answer and you're working on task achievement. So you're ensuring that all of the ideas, all of the development, everything is going to get you a high task achievement score. So basically, you write a plan and you're going, right, I have task achievement taken care of. That's fine. Then with coherence and cohesion, a lot of it is just following the structures that, you know, I've provided you, or whatever IELTS teacher you're working closely with. That's taking care of most of your coherence and cohesion. So after that, you're just writing out your essay, following the plan you've already written, and focusing on, you know, making sure your grammar and your vocab are clearly communicating your ideas. So more than anything, if you write an essay plan, that's going to help bring up your score. Besides that, it just depends on the individual mistakes that you're making after that. So once, and hopefully I have convinced you to write an essay plan, the next thing that you're going to need is feedback on your work. So you might think your ideas are perfect, but I can show you, okay, this idea is perfect, this one is irrelevant, this is why it's irrelevant, explain to you and help you to understand what your mistakes are so that you can avoid repeating them. So getting feedback on your work is really, really important as well. Because a lot of students really struggle with idea generation and development and organization. So getting an expert to tell you what your mistakes are so that you can overcome the mistakes is really, really important too. Hello, sir. You're doing a great job. Thank you. I passed my IELTS with an overall score of 7.5. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I know you can't recognize this account because I recently changed. I was using Jane Tuambo Chipapa. Jane, fantastic. You got your scores. Well done. Delighted to hear it. Januka, is it necessary to have good handwriting to get good scores? Nope. Nope. If your handwriting is terrible and the examiner cannot read your writing, that's a problem. But it doesn't need to look pretty. It doesn't need to look nice. As long as the words can be read, that's fine. It can be very messy, not look nice, but you still get the score you deserve. So no, your handwriting does not affect your score at all. Oh, unless it's so unclear that it cannot be read, then it does. But normally it doesn't. And you know as well, like, examiners are looking at people's handwriting for a living. Like they're spending a lot of their time looking at candidates writing, and even outside, like teaching English classes, teaching IELTS classes. So they will be looking at handwriting a lot. So in general, they will be quite good at reading handwriting. I have never once got a script that I couldn't understand. Maybe once, like a one word in the middle of a script, but never have I got a script that I couldn't understand. So I've never encountered that as an issue. Hello, Shiny. Tips on reading. For reading, this is what you want to do. I'm the only person who ever suggests this. I came up with this strategy myself through trial and error because I cannot follow those complicated IELTS strategies. For reading, the easiest thing you could do, read the first paragraph and then answer as many questions as you can. Then come back to the second paragraph and answer as many questions as you can. So that will mean that you will go through the questions, potentially 8 times. But what it means is you'll only go through the text one time. So you go through the questions one time for every paragraph. So obviously there are 13 questions for each passage. So when you read the first paragraph, you'll have to look at all 13. But by the time you get to the last paragraph, there'll only be 1 or 2 questions left unanswered. So each time you go through the questions, it gets faster because you've removed the ones that you've already answered as you go through the paragraphs. It's much more straightforward way of finding the answers. It takes all the complication out of it. And honestly, I don't understand why IELTS reading strategies are so complicated. I have never understood the benefit of finding keywords, thinking of synonyms, potentially missing the correct keyword and looking for a synonym of a word that isn't a keyword, trying to skim and scan instead of read, trying to find the answers without ever reading it, trying to know what a paragraph is about without ever reading it. It's very complicated, those approaches. So just go read a paragraph, check the questions, read the next paragraph, check the questions, and do that throughout. And it'll save you time as well. It's much easier and it's faster. How to enhance our academic writing skills. So it's not the same answer for every student. It's a different answer for each individual. And again, like that's why on my writing course, there's so much feedback, because there's no one answer for everybody. I have to look at your work, tell you what you're doing wrong so that you can improve your scores. Then the next student will have completely different mistakes, and I need to show them what they need to focus on to improve their scores. So, if I look at your work, you might have problems with all 4 bands. You might have problem with task achievement, coherence and cohesion, vocab and grammar. And, we just narrow it down to the biggest problem and focus on that. Or it might be you have a problem with task achievement, but your coherence, cohesion, vocab, and grammar are perfect. So we will just focus on task achievement. And then what is it about your task achievement? Is it you don't analyze the question carefully enough? You don't plan carefully enough? Your ideas aren't relevant. Your ideas aren't specific. You're not developing them appropriately enough. So what is it about task achievement? So really, different students will have different answers. There are only so many problems, but you don't want to try and improve everything. That could take potentially years. But if you're just focusing on that small little area that's stopping you from getting your score, that does not take as much time as trying to improve, task achievement, vocab, grammar, pronunciation, coherence and cohesion, fluency. Focus on your area of difficulty, your weakness, and that's what you need to do to enhance your scores. So I know I didn't give you the answer you want, but it's really about, finding out specifically why you are not getting your score and fixing that problem. And it becomes very manageable after that. It's still a lot of work. Absolutely, it's still a lot of work. But when you know you're working on the thing that will get you the scores you need, it's a lot easier to stay going, and it's a lot easier to stay motivated as well. Can we use the same kind of vocabulary in speaking and writing? Speaking tends to be more informal. So there are words that you can use in the speaking test that will not be appropriate in the writing test. In general, the writing, especially task 2, will be more formal, but task 1 for academic as well. So the only time it won't be formal in writing is if you are doing general training and you're writing a letter to a friend. Besides that, it's always formal. So the answer to your question is most of the language will be the same, but none of the informal language belongs in writing. So that would be the situation there. May I have the best tips in writing part 1? Is that the question? Writing task 1. For writing task 1, if you're academic, the most important thing is that there are two very important things in task 1. If you're academic, you need to make sure you know how to write an overview. Without an overview, you're not getting a good score. and you need to make sure you include all the key features. So if you're missing key features, actually 3. If you're missing key features, if you've got inaccurate data, or you cannot write an overview, you're not getting a good score in task 1. If you're doing general training, the most difficult thing is to make sure that your tone is consistent. So if you have formal vocabulary in an informal letter, your task achievement score will not be high. Or vice versa, if you have informal language in a formal letter, then your task achievement won't be high either. So it depends on if you're doing general or academic. And I think you're asking me about part 1, about writing task 1, but I'm not 100% sure. So a lot of you are asking me about how to improve your scores, and getting feedback is a major part of that. So I did share the link to get my essay correction service already, but I also have another link for my courses. So previously I just had the highest end of my speaking and writing courses, but what I've done is I've combined them and I've made cheaper versions of those courses as well. So the way that works is you come in, I show you what to do, I'll get you to try doing it, I'll show you what you're doing wrong, and then I'll provide you with the materials you need to improve those areas that you're struggling with. So that type of hands-on, one-on-one support you will get in my premium course. And then you can choose just writing, just speaking, or everything. Okay, so I just labeled that IELTS courses, and I'm sharing it with you in the links now. But yeah, getting feedback is essential. Just hoping you're doing everything okay, and then finding out on test day, like using your test as a way to see what scores you're capable of, but then still not knowing why you're not getting your scores. That's a very demoralizing way to try and improve. Whereas if you come into my course, I'll show you what you're doing wrong. I'll show you what scores you can expect. I'll show you what you need to do to get your scores, and then you know that you're ready for your scores before you go to the IELTS test. So you're just pushing forwards all the time, not just wondering, am I doing the right thing, or hoping that you're doing the right thing. Hey, Moizam, happy to see you too. Always great to see you. Tsepiso, hello. Happy to see me live. Great. Ismol Jonov. How do you judge writing keywords in speaking task 2? In part 2? There aren't really keywords. It's not that there are specific words the examiner is looking for. It's that the examiner is checking what words you're using and how precisely you can describe the things that you're looking to describe. So the higher level your vocabulary, the more precision you will have with your descriptions. So if you, let's say if you're a band 6, you can describe absolutely anything. There's no topic that you cannot discuss if you're band 6 vocab. But if you're a band 7, you can describe those things in fewer words because you have the more specific words to each topic. So instead of having to describe what you're talking about, you use the word that describes it. So normally it will be that like topic specific vocabulary, vocab that can only be used for whatever topic you're talking about and accurately describes what you're saying. So it's not just using less common words, it's using less common words appropriately. And a lot of students, a lot of candidates make that mistake, that they think, okay, I need a band 7, so I have to use less common vocab. But yes, but you have to use less common vocab accurately. So what a lot of students try to do is like, oh, this word sounds good, I'll use this. But they use it incorrectly and it ends up bringing their score down. So over and over again, especially like if I have a student on my course who has attended other courses previously, a lot of them will have that approach where they think the solution to getting a higher vocab score is using words that they cannot use in their essay, not going and actually studying and improving their vocab. So you get that a lot. And for me, it's like kind of trying to deprogram someone into changing the way they approach the test. And sometimes what you'll have is students who can actually get a band 7, but they've been getting band 6 vocabulary because of their approach. So that does happen as well, where you might not even need to learn more vocab. You might just need to stop using so many words incorrectly. But to answer your question, that the examiner isn't looking for keywords. The examiner is looking for your ability and how many specific words, specific topic specific words you're using accurately. Sova, if the question is about what measures could be taken to improve health, then can we write increase the price of a products of junk food instead of increase the taxes on junk food? Yeah, it's kind of the same thing though. Yeah, it's fine, but the thing is, like, who's going to implement that? So the government is going to say, okay, all of you companies selling junk food, you have to increase your prices by 20%. Or they will say, we'll put on extra tax and we'll keep that money for ourselves. So I don't think there's ever a situation where the government will say, we're going to raise prices, but we'll let the companies keep the extra money for themselves. Normally what will happen is the governments will say, okay, there's an incentive, we'll raise prices and we'll keep that money. Because generally companies want to keep their prices as low as possible because they're all competing with one another. So like a company wouldn't just raise their prices without being forced to do it. So I think essentially what your two ideas, they're the same thing, because it's still going to be either the government telling them to increase it or the government just increasing taxes. So I don't think those are different ideas. Oh, good. Do we? Hello, sir. What should we do to be confident in speaking? What you can do is get better at speaking. Get better. Like, why are you not confident? Are you not confident because your fluency is poor because you never speak in English? Then you need to improve your fluency by speaking more in English. Are you not confident because when you try to communicate your ideas, you don't have the vocabulary to clearly express yourself? Well, then that's a problem with vocabulary. So you need to improve your vocabulary. And then once you start expressing yourself easily, you will become more confident as well. So again, it's about the source of your lack of confidence. Why are you not confident? What's causing that? And then addressing that issue. Okay, Facebook user. For reading, I got 7.5. I was able to read through the passages while highlighting the keywords and taking notes of the main points. There is enough time to read. Aside from that, I practiced speed reading. Okay, yeah, great. Sounds good. You got the score you needed, so perfect. I've never heard of that taking notes before. So it sounds like you're reading the whole text and then looking at the questions and answering the questions based on your notes. I don't know if I would recommend, in fact, I wouldn't recommend that to everyone. I wouldn't recommend that to other people, but it works for you and that's perfect. Like you found a way to do it a way that suits you best. So that's absolutely perfect. But just the amount of time you would use taking notes, like a lot of people would certainly struggle with that. Are there different marking criteria for general IELTS? Ever so slightly. So in task 1, they'll be looking for your response to the bullet points. And in reading, the number of correct answers equates to different band scores. So I can't remember exactly, but like, let's say if you need a 7 in general training, that would be 2 more extra correct answers compared to academic. That doesn't mean it's more difficult. It's just that in general, in general training, the reading texts tend to be easier. So the number of correct answers required for each score is just a small bit higher. But it doesn't really affect like how you would approach the test wouldn't change because of that. That's the examiner side of things. But yeah, just those 2 small bits. Shiny, thank you, sir. You're very welcome. I will find my way in answering reading section as per your advice. Good. Mohammed, sir, I can't differentiate between headings in reading sections. What should I do? So what you're describing is very common. What happens is you're trying to match the heading to the paragraph. So you look at the paragraph and then you think it might be heading number 1 or heading number 4. I'm not sure which ones. And the reason you're not sure is because those 2 headings seem to have the same meaning when you read them. And the reason that they seem to have the same meaning is because of your language ability. And IELTS does this on purpose. They have very slight differences in meaning, and you need to have a higher level of English to know to differentiate between the 2 of them. So long term, it's just improve your English, improve your grammar, improve your vocab. Short term, it's make a note next to each one. So if you're doing paragraph A, put A next to each one. Hopefully, later on, one of the other paragraphs will more obviously be one of the options, and then you can remove that and you'll have the answer to A. Or it might be you get to the end and you're just going, I still don't know. In that case, you just got to guess. I mean, it's not what you want. It's not the situation you want. But, it could take a long time to improve your language to the point where you can definitely understand it. So it depends how far off the score you need is. If you're much lower than the score you need, then definitely improving your language and taking the time to do that is the solution. And also not doing more practice reading tests while you're improving your English, because there are a limited number of reading tests. And eventually you will run out. If you keep on using them without addressing your problem, you'll run out of reading tests. And doing them a second time is not the same thing as doing them a first time. You'll remember some of the answers. You'll get more answers correct. You'll do them faster. So they are a limited resource and treat them that way. Don't just do them thinking that, you're thinking you'll improve your scores by doing more and more practice reading tests. It doesn't work like that. Once you've figured out the reason why you're not getting the score you need, and it's something not the exam skill, not your approach to the reading test, but actually your language ability, you need to stop using those practice tests until you're ready. And Samreen, where can I get past papers for last 2 years for practice? In the bookshop. In the bookshop. Cambridge prints them. Cambridge prints one. It's like about once a year. So you get Cambridge IELTS books. I think it's up to 16 now. But books 1 to 4 are the old format. So don't buy those ones. So anything from 5 up to 16 will be appropriate. And like you get online bookshops like Amazon sell them anyway. I don't know if you have Amazon where you are, but you can get them everywhere. They have them in all the big bookshops. Hello, Jewel. I'm doing good. Good to see you again. I have challenges with reading, especially not given true or false. Okay, so it's always going to be, do you understand what true is? Do you understand what false is? Do you understand what not given is? true and false will have information in the text to show you the answer. So you can always circle the part of the text where you found the answer is true. You can circle the part of the text where you found the answer is false. You cannot circle the part of the text where you found not given. In fact, you cannot find not given, because that's what it means. It's not in the text. So if you're looking and looking and looking and looking and you cannot find it, that's not given. Also, keep an eye on which ones you're getting wrong. So what happens with a lot of students is they'll always get true correct, and it's only when it's between false and not given that they get it wrong. So you need to figure out, like, are you choosing false when it should have been not given? Or are you choosing not given when it should have been false? Why are you doing it wrong? Which, look at the text again, analyze what the correct answer was, and analyze your answer, and determine why you chose your answer, the incorrect answer, instead of the correct answer. So narrow it down as well. In a lot of cases, it is students choosing false instead of not given. And that's kind of a confidence issue as well, in that you're not confident enough to say the text, the information isn't in the text. But those are the main issues. Also, keep in mind, true, false, not given. For those question types, the answers come in order. So the first, as you read from the top of the text, the first answer you will find is the answer to question 1. The second answer will be the answer to question 2, and so on. So you can use that to your advantage as well. Okay. Is Molly Jonov? Thank you for your answer. You're very welcome. And soon I will finish complete IELTS band 4 to 5. And after finishing that, what kind of book should I read? Can you suggest? So I wouldn't recommend any other books, really. Those are the only books I suggest. Complete IELTS band 4 to 5. Actually, I don't know that book. I thought we were talking about Cambridge IELTS. I read it incorrectly. But the only books I recommend are Cambridge IELTS books for practice reading and listening. Everything else you'll find. You'll find on my website, find on my YouTube page. What are tasks in writing for general training? So task 1, you need to write a letter. And task 2 is the exact same as academic. So task 2 is the same for everybody. Just in general training, you have to write a letter. In academic, you have to write a report based on a graph, a map, or a process. What if I'm unable to describe my idea without much idioms or phrases? Will it bring down your score? First of all, don't use idioms. Idioms are not going to get you a high score because they sound weird and they're very rarely used appropriately, and they're only used in very specific contexts. So don't worry about idioms. But well, I mean, it just depends on what score you need. You don't need idioms to get a high score. If you don't have the range of vocabulary to get the score you need to improve your vocabulary. It's, if you're a band 6 level and you need a band 7, you need to learn like another 1,000 words or whatever. That, I'm not saying exactly 1,000, but a lot more words. The only reason your score will go down is if you're using words incorrectly. So if you're a band 6, if you are capable of a band 6 and you start using idioms and I can't understand your writing, then you'll get a band 4 or a band 5. But if you communicate clearly, you'll get the band 6. You'll get the score you deserve. But if you need a band 7, there are no tricks, there are no quick ways. You literally need to sit down every day for weeks and months and learn the amount of vocabulary required for a band 7. So there's no quick, like, learn 10 idioms and suddenly you're a band 7. It's a very, very, IELTS will give you a very, very accurate representation of your ability, which is why it's recognized all over the world. It's because it really does do what it needs to do. So, like what you'll find, like lots of YouTube videos saying, like, use these 3 idioms and you'll get a band 9. But that's nonsense. That's nonsense. It's good YouTube. Like, it's great for YouTube algorithm. Everybody wants to hear that. that sounds like good news. And then, it just gets right up to the top. YouTube shows it to everyone. But that's not the reality. And when you think about it logically, why would Canada say, okay, you can come and work with us if you discovered the 3 idioms that will fool the IELTS examiner? It's like, no, we want you to have a certain level of English. We want to know that you will be able to work in the environment that we're putting you into. Not, did you watch that YouTube video that had the magic 3 idioms to fool the examiner? So, when you think about it that way, it's quite obvious that it will take a lot of time, effort, hard work, dedication to improve your scores, because you need to have the ability, not just, pretend. Are there any secrets to get a high band score in reading? 8+, I mean. There's strategies. You need to be familiar with the test, and you need to do it in a way that will ensure you can do it in 1 hour. So all the strategies are just basically to help you complete it in an hour, because it's the time restrictions. Without time restrictions, if you had 2-3 hours, you wouldn't need a strategy. You just read the thing as many times as you needed. So all the strategies, exam techniques, they're because you have a 1 hour limit. But besides that, you need to understand what you're reading. So if you're getting questions wrong because you don't understand the questions, or you're getting them wrong because you don't understand the text, that is your language ability. So, it's not a secret, but have the language ability you need for the score you need. That's basically it. You're not going to get a score higher than your ability. You're going to get the score that your ability allows you to get. That's once you get comfortable with the format of the test, the types of questions, the instructions, and then have a strategy to make sure you can do it in an hour. But after that, it's all about your language ability. Karishma. In speaking, does the score get completely different than unexpected in real test, like the 6.5 range in mock tests? Well, it depends who did the mock test. If you got a mock test from someone who has no idea what they're talking about, who hasn't been an examiner, I could ask my father to do a mock IELTS speaking test with you, and he'll give you a number, but he has no idea what that number represents. He doesn't know how to do it. His English is great. It's the only language he speaks. But he would have no idea what a band 6 is or what a band 6.5 is. So it depends who gives you the mock test. If you get a mock test from someone who has no clue what they're doing, then I would say, yes, it will definitely be different. But if you get a practice test, a mock test from, an actual IELTS expert who has been examining and knows how the test works, then it will be the same. So it depends. Where did you get your mock test? Would be the key piece of information I need for that question. Although I have answered it already. Samreen, sometimes multiple choice answers are very confusing, kind of synonyms. Then what would your tip be in that situation? Like, IELTS is doing this on purpose, because there's a massive range. Like, they have to analyze you and determine your ability from a band score of 1 to 9. And if they don't use synonyms to see how well you understand the text and the questions, then how are they going to know who's a band 9, who's an 8.5, who's an 8, who's a 7? Like, they need to have those really difficult questions, because they need to identify the difference between a 7.5 and an 8. They need to see exactly what's your limit. So eventually, they can't have all easy questions or everyone's a band 9. So they need different complexity, different difficulty levels within each question to separate out who's here, who's here, who's here, who's here. So the solution is you you need to be able to understand those synonyms. If you don't know what a word means, you're not going to get the answer right. If the word is in the text, you can use the context to guess, and that will work on occasion, but that also still means that you know all the words around it. So it's down to your language ability again. If this happens to you once or twice, use the context. If this happens to you a lot, you need to improve your language ability. Okay, Raman, hello sir, would you mind specifically some accurate tips for effective concentration in listening part? So what's difficult in listening is, if you never listen to English and you just get exhausted. So you've listened to the first 5 minutes and your brain is just like, I can't do this anymore, I need a break. That's because you don't listen to English often enough. If the listening test is 30 minutes long, if you never listen to 30 minutes of English except when you're doing practice listening tests, of course it's going to be difficult. But if you sit down, you watch English movies, you listen to podcasts, and you regularly listen to 2-3 hours of English, it's not going to be as taxing. The other problem is what you need to focus on. So there are times you need to read the questions, there are times you need to listen to the audio, and sometimes you need to practice like when to focus on which, and never to focus too long on the questions, because you need to still follow what's going on in the audio. But what you'll find for that is that they'll normally discuss one topic in full before moving on to the next topic. And when they're transitioning from the end of one topic to the beginning of the other, there's normally a few seconds, like maybe 5 seconds or so there, where they're not answering any questions, they're just introducing that new topic. And that's always a really good time to focus on the questions and get ahead on those. Sir, can we get Cambridge academic book from 10 to 6 on PDF, or should we buy in the bookstore? They don't have a PDF version there. They only have a paper printed version of those books. So there aren't any other versions. Introductory paragraph of task 2 should be paraphrase the question, outline statement with your opinion if you asked for it, and whatever number of main ideas you need. Thank you, Felix. Sneha, sir, I have only 3 days for my final test. Could you please give me some suggestions, because it seems haphazard, everything. So in the test, in speaking and writing, don't try to use high-level vocabulary. Just focus on communicating clearly. Write a plan for your essay. That's it. And then just, whatever you've studied and whatever you've learned, just follow whatever advice you've been following. So like if you've been following my advice and I've been saying, write an essay plan in this way and do this, don't skip those steps when you're in the IELTS test. A lot of students kind of panic when they're in the IELTS test and they decide, okay, I've been writing a plan all the time, but now I don't have time. I'm too worried. I'm just going to write the essay. And then their task achievement score suffers. So whatever advice, whatever teacher you've been following, stick with that advice and just follow the plan. And don't push yourself beyond your limit with vocab and grammar. Just, clearly communicate what you're trying to say. And that's the best approach. Great. Best of luck, Felix. You still have a little bit of time left. A little over 2 weeks. You can do a lot in 2 weeks. You can. In IELTS, you can do a lot. You can't do a lot with like fluency, vocab, pronunciation. You can't do a great deal in those areas, but in 2.5 weeks, you can improve your scores. You can improve aspects of your scores in 2 weeks. So stick with it. Stay working hard for now. Abel, you're very welcome. Ikra, doing well. Thanks for asking. Shiny, sir, we feel IELTS exam are just a business because those with poor English first pass the exam and those with English well versed cannot score after 8 to 10 times attending. No, that's simply not true. This is something that people who fail the test say because they're annoyed. That's not true. Go to any IELTS examiner, anybody working in IELTS, any IELTS candidate who has passed the test, and they'll tell you that's not true. But if you get a student who goes and does the IELTS test, they need a 7 and they're not capable of a band 7, so they get 6 and they go, okay, I'll do it again, and a band 6 again, and they do it again, they get band 6 again. They don't do anything to improve their scores, and they do it again, fail, again, fail, again, fail. They don't know what they're doing wrong. They think they're good enough, but they're not. They're really a 6. They want a 7. They don't understand what they need to do to improve. They don't do anything to improve. They do the test again, they get a 6 again. And these people are frustrated and angry and annoyed. So they start saying, the IELTS exam is just a business. All they want is my money. And this is one that we hear a lot. Wherever you're from, you'll have the myth. Like, you're from Nigeria. Everybody, the examiners in Nigeria don't give high scores. The examiners in our country are trying to stop us from getting the test. You live in Bangladesh. The myth is, in Bangladesh, the IELTS examiners always give us low scores. They're trying to not let us get a high score. If you do the test, and this happens as well, students fly to other countries because they think they'll get a higher score in another country because the examiners are unfair where they are, and they get the same score again. It's nonsense. I understand where it comes from. People are angry and frustrated because they don't understand what they're doing wrong, and they keep failing the test. And they feel like, I've given all this money, I'm still not getting the scores I need. It's because your English isn't good enough and you don't know how to write an IELTS essay. But I mean, for those people, I'm saying, like, go work with an IELTS expert. Go work with me or any of the other IELTS experts you'll find online. They will show you why you're getting a band 6. They will show you how to get a band 7, 8, whatever score you need, as long as you work hard. But this, I get really disappointed when I hear students saying that, because what that means is, it's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's the IELTS test, the examiners, everybody's trying to make it my life difficult. It's not. You're not good enough. It's you're not good enough, and that's why you're not getting the scores you need. And you'll see as well, like with students who've consistently failed to get the IELTS test, their IELTS scores, and then they go and they join a course like my course and they get their IELTS scores, and they're going like, oh, that's what I was doing wrong. Oh, that's why I didn't get the scores I needed. So if you ask someone who's failed 8 or 10 times, this is the story they will tell you. If you ask someone who has already passed the test, they'll give you a different story. But I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, that's so common to hear people say that, but it's not true. And if you believe it, you'll give up because you think that it's not your fault that you're not getting your scores, and it's not up to you to improve. So it's a dangerous way to think, because people who think that way will not get their scores because they think it's not their fault and they won't improve. I'm passionate about that one. Could you please tell me how much time is the best for everyday listening practice? You have to balance, because there's so much to do. Is that the main thing that you need to do? Like, and why are you listening? Is it because you don't understand particular accents? Is it because, like we're saying, you're getting tired, so you just need to listen in general? You should try and work in your vocabulary into that. Like, make sure that you're focusing on topics. Like, if you're focused on a specific topic for vocab, make sure you're listening to that topic as well, so that your new vocab gets reinforced by hearing those words again. But as much as possible, but I mean, not all the time. If you're also struggling with fluency, you need to practice that a bit. So you need to find a balance between, like, how much time do you have and what things need your attention most. So there's no easy answer to that. As much as possible, but don't neglect the other things that need your attention either. Okay, we're pretty much out of time, so I'm just going to give some quick answers to the remaining questions, and then we'll finish up there for this week. Herbert, good day, my mentor. Hello. Is it more appropriate to use idiomatic phrases rather than proverbial idioms in IELTS speaking exam? Don't use idioms. Don't use proverbial idioms. Idiomatic phrases, so like slang, stuff like that. Yeah, good. But don't use idioms. No, stay away from idioms. What are the advantages of taking computer-based test if I'm comfortable in writing? If you're good at typing, like, I can type faster than I can write. So that's the advantage of the computer-based test. If you can't type, stay away from the computer-based test. That's the big thing. In task 2, what are the most common topics? There's a bunch of them, but you'll know yourself from practicing. So things like environment, health, society, entertainment, education, those kind of broad topics come up a lot. How many practice papers I have to hit for band 8? It's not how many you need to do, it's how much improvement you're making between each one. So if you sit down, let's say you're currently a band 6 and you do every practice reading test, you'll still be a band 6. But if you're currently a band 7 and you realize it's because your vocab isn't good enough and you go and you improve your vocab and then you come back, that will improve your score. So it's not about how many tests you need to do. It's about doing a test to help you understand what your problems are, then go away from the tests, address the problem. When you've done that, come back and do another practice test and repeat. How much time is enough for everyday listening practice? Sorry, I answered that already. Ala, stressing Shiny Jacob's statement that the IELTS is a business. I, as an experienced teacher of English who holds a master's degree in TEFL and took the IELTS test twice, stuck at 6.5. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. It isn't. Not at all. If you got 6.5 twice, then how are they basing their score on that? I feel like this is emotional for you, and I don't want to make you angry, and I don't want to get into a dispute with you. But I can tell you, you're doing something wrong. So you don't know how to write an essay in the way IELTS wants you to write an essay. So it could be that your vocab and your grammar are excellent, but your task achievement and your coherence and cohesion, which are writing your answers in the way IELTS wants you to write the answers, those are not being done properly. So it's just because you're getting a 6.5 doesn't mean your English is bad. It could mean your English is great, but you don't know how to do the IELTS test. And what I like to equate that to is when I was doing the driving test, when I was getting my driving license when I was a teenager. Okay, everybody who drives a car drives with one hand. Everybody drives with one hand. But when you're doing the driving test, you will fail if you drive with one hand. So even though we're talking about people with 20, 30 years of driving experience, they're very safe, excellent, great drivers, they've never been in an accident, they drive with one hand. If they did the driving test in that way, they would fail because you have to drive with two hands on the steering wheel. So does it mean these people are terrible drivers? No, it means they don't know how to do the driving test. And in the same way, you are saying that your English is great, so you should get a high score. Well, yes and no. Yes, the English side of the score will be high, but did you put two hands on the steering wheel side of things, you're obviously doing something like that type of a mistake. So no, it's not an attempt to make people fail. It's people doing the test before they understand what to do. So I know that's not what you want to hear from me, but that is the truth. Deki from Bhutan, hello to you. And last one for today. Felix, true what you're saying. I was told by someone that IELTS in Uganda is more easier than the one in Kenya. So it's a myth. Yeah, every country has their own version. It's the same myth, but with their country as the country that never gets the scores they need. But even if you go online, if you type in IELTS demographic statistics, IELTS shows you the scores that everybody gets, and it's nearly every country's average score is below band 7, and some of them significantly lower. So it's just people doing the test without knowing how to get the score they need or without having the language ability. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for all the questions. And I'll be back with another Q&A next week. This Thursday, I'll choose the winner of the essay correction competition and the winner of the practice IELTS speaking test. If you haven't already entered those, check out my YouTube community and my Facebook page. You'll see the posts that I shared on Sunday. So go back to Sunday's posts, one for writing, one for speaking, and you can enter those competitions for Thursday. Okay, so until next time, take care of yourselves, everybody, and best of luck with the IELTS test if any of you are doing it before I speak with you next. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.